too long, but let's see what happens.
All right, you did it?
Yeah, it's showing everything's on. If you want to check it. Guys, we're on early if you're starting to join in. We just decided that we wanted to start letting people see that we're here and jump in, and we'll get officially started at 8:30. So hop on in, tell your friends it's a party.
All right, yeah, we're on Facebook, so
Yeah. So we should be on Facebook and on YouTube. There's chatting going on in both places, and we see it all, and we're able to respond and invite your chats into our conversations. So get comfortable, and we're just waiting on people to join in, and we'll get started at 8:30. We have less than 2 minutes.
That is correct.
It's funny. I watch other YouTube lives, and they do a lot of this sort of getting started stuff, and it's sort of annoying at first. We're like, "Hi, Johnny. Hi, and whoever joins."
Hey.
To
the stage. Hello. We started a little bit early because we wanted to make sure that everything was fine and working.
Yep.
Facebook.
So I think that we just have people starting to join now. And guys, if you're joining, give us a shout out, invite other people, share the link. So when we get started, we can have people watching. Today we're excited because we have some more feedback and input from the detectives. We've covered a lot of ground, talking to a lot of different people, and but today we're really focusing on the eyewitness accounts. Hi, Cornelius. Hi, Teresa.
You guys.
Yep.
Cornelius, you like this one. It's about cars.
Right. So let's. Oh, hi, Carrie.
Hey, Carrie.
Invite your friends. Share the link. You can have them watch from Facebook on the Justice for Julie Ferguson Facebook page, or on the YouTube at Crime Crashers page. We have
Lisa. Word booty.
Word booty. That's great. I don't even know how you say that.
You start saying it though. That's what I know.
So I'm going to go ahead and do our little intro video, and then we'll get started. We are Crime Crashers. We challenge the code of silence that keeps witnesses from coming forward. We push law enforcement to solve these crimes. Our goal is to give a voice to victims and bring justice to unsolved cases. Join us as we take this journey into crime and justice by crashing through the barriers with the Crime Crashers. Yay!
Hey!
So hi, we have Benjamin here and Heather, and keep inviting people to join us. If you know people, share it to your page and get them involved, especially if they're from the Greenbelt, Lanham, PG County area. So there's a lot of people that follow from those areas and have a lot to share. So this is always fun to have in the conversation. Just to start with the introductions, I am Jenny with Crime Crashers, and we have. Julie.
Oh, sorry. I'm Julie, Justice for Julie Ferguson.
I'm Erin with Justice for Julie Ferguson.
So we're going to do our PowerPoint, and we have information that we're going to share specifically from the detectives that have been working the case. So tonight, one of the things that is really cool is they're starting to do more for this case, and that's always been a challenge with all the cold cases out there. We know that they've been actively pursuing some leads, and we hope that that continues. And so just wanted to share that this is the Justice for Julie website. and you can go to justiceforjulie.org. And if you're watching from Facebook, you're on the Facebook page. But if you're not on Facebook and you want to go there, you can follow along with Give Julie Justice. And so if you just search that, you'll be able to find the group. Julie, you want to talk about this one, witness one?
Yeah, so we're just going to jump into it tonight. We know it's a Tuesday and it's getting late. So, so we have several witness accounts of what people saw that night. And the first one saw a maroon Volkswagen Jetta with a passenger door open, and the victim appeared to converse with occupant. The person who observed it could not tell how many people were inside the vehicle and gave no further description. So we have an open door.
Yes, that's actually been something that people have talked about. You know, we've talked a lot about, was she leaning in? Did she know them? We've had someone who worked with her at Linens and things say, oh, no way would she have been, you know, talking to a stranger, gotten into a car with a stranger. She was going through enough in her life that she would have been wary of that, feels very confident that it's someone she knew. And the fact that, you know, now we have this information that a door was open to that red car is really important. And that, you know, Julie was seen talking to them. We actually asked the detectives to find out from that victim, that witness, how close was she? Was she in the window? Was she leaning in? Did she look comfortable? Like, what was their impression? I don't know if these questions were asked, you know, back then. They didn't have any information on it. And I just want to do a disclaimer and say that this is their abbreviated version of the notes that they had. The problem with some of the notes could be that rather than having the witnesses write down a very detailed account with every possible detail and ask every possible question, we know that some witnesses were just talked to and the cops took notes in a notepad. So they could have even written it in shorthand, you know, just not very descriptive, maybe didn't ask all the questions. But how someone leans into a car is a detail we felt was like pretty important in the scheme of things of, you know, what was their comfort level with talking to those people, especially if their door was open. Because if someone that was actually visually watching when that door was cracked open or partially open, and Julie wasn't acting concerned, that's definitely, you know, like backing up or getting some space. That's very interesting. Certainly they noticed it, but there was nothing that they said was alarming. Erin, what are your thoughts?
I think it's important, like what you're saying, as far as the demeanor, the body language. Was she keeping distance? Was she leaning in, like you said? Kind of to get a feel for what was transpiring there. I think we all kind of agreed on prior videos that she likely knew the person, but this can solidify that if we got some further, like, small details.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that they said they couldn't tell how many people were inside the vehicle. Mm-hmm. Like, did they notice that there was multiple people, but they didn't know how many? Anyhow,
was there someone in the passenger seat?
Or was
it just the driver and her looking in?
Was it tinted so they couldn't see, you know, things like little stuff?
There's a lot of details. And, you know, maybe, I know that there was male detectives running these cases, but maybe they needed a woman because we're nosy as fuck. And we would ask a lot more questions. In my opinion, I would have wanted to know every detail. And, but, you know, I do have some respect for how hard it is to record all the information that's coming at you after a crime is committed and, you know, documenting it all, keeping track of it all. But, you know, I think that, you know, asking every single little detailed question like that, and I wish I had access to everything that they saw and had, you know, knew that somebody had asked them all those questions. Anyhow, we're going to move on to witness number 2. Very vague. Saw burgundy Volkswagen Jetta, no further description. But now we have 2 different witnesses that saw this same car. Mm-hmm. and I put in here, did the police ask enough questions? Was there music playing in the, sorry guys, I misspelled music. That meant to say music. Where was the car when they saw it? Was it parked at the time? Was it being driven? Was it pulled up to the liquor store? Were people in it? How did witness 2 just say, oh yeah, I saw this car? How many cars were in that parking lot that night? Something about that car stood out to them that they noticed. And you'll see with other witnesses, there was some things that might have stood out if it was the same car. But I would love for them to go back to witness 2 and ask that. I'm going to.
Oh, she's frozen. Are you all right?
I was gonna say, I thought it was me.
Oh no. Maybe Jenny, maybe come out and come back in.
Uh-oh.
Oh no. All right. Well, we'll wait for Jenny to come. We'll go ahead, and here she is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh my God, that was scary. All right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you can pick up. You can pick back up with witness 3.
Oh, sorry.
There
I was
she is.
waiting for you to. Yeah, sorry, I'm here. So this was sort of off in left field, but the witness number 3 saw a strange white van, unknown make or model, with silver stripes, in good condition, possible rack on the rear. The van was close to CVS, drove by Safeway, then close to Linens and things, and then the liquor store. I mean, if you're a kid from like the 80s, 90s, the strange white van is like a thing, right? What strikes me about the strange white van is that there was nobody that said they saw it pulled up talking to Julie or by the liquor store, and that's a big vehicle to notice. And we don't know anything about who was in the van. Why was it strange? That kind of thing. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Wait, that what? Sorry, I was in the chat. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Do you guys have any thoughts on, is this van important to you? Do you think it could be involved, or why it might have been strange or suspicious? Or just because it was a white van?
Yeah, I think you make a good point about the white van. I mean, we all had that kind of fear going on, like from childhood, about somebody with candy in a white van. So I could see that being something, but it might be relevant. I mean, if it was mentioned and somebody saw something suspicious, I want to know, do we know of anybody who had that kind of van?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. If anyone is on here, you knew somebody who had a white van that lived in the area, that Julie might have known, that's always good to know.
I think that it's interesting, though. These are the exact narratives, pretty much, that we got from the detective. So, strange white van, is it just like what Julie's saying? Like, we kind of have that idea in our head from childhood, or why did they use that word to describe?
Well, clearly it was driving around the parking lot in some capacity. I mean, I don't know if it was lurking around and that's what was strange. This is again where nosy women should be asking a lot more questions, like, did they hover anywhere? Did they circle back around? Were they opening their window and looking out at people? What about it was strange?
Yeah,
so and again, go ahead.
The CVS was close to the Safeway, so they were, and then Linens and things in the liquor store were more in the center of the mall, so they were definitely making.
They definitely did a loop.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and that's the thing. If you happen to be there around that time and you came forward, yeah, I saw this. That's the kind of thing you might notice just naturally, but it doesn't mean it's not involved. We just are trying to be very open to anything. I just want to point out, Jill asked if she ever hung out with older guys, and the answer to that is yes, definitely. I would say probably anywhere up to about 22, 23 that we know of. And I don't know how close she was with each person that was older, but it was definitely the social scene, and there were people who hung out a lot Cornelia says, that's a difficult description. Was it a work van, a full-size van, a minivan, a foreign car van? You know,
We missed you, Cornelius.
Yeah,
yes.
we do.
Yeah, well, it is an important detail, and those are the things I wish I knew. Keeping in mind that Detective Bernie was very kind to share the stuff. He certainly doesn't have to, and he sort of transcribed, sort of the gist of what they told us. It may not include every detail, but if he's watching, hi, Detective Bernie. You can always give us more details. We are very nosy. One of the things I say is every piece of information I'm given only makes me ask like 20 more questions. And it frustrates me that I don't have the answers to everything.
Something about the van though, kind of sticks with me a little bit just because we've talked about a lot of the details that were given to us about the actual crime and really like where did it really happen and things. And a van kind of, just would be an ideal thing for something like this. So that kind of does stick in my mind too. So
Yeah, I mean, it certainly fits the predator, concept. So, witness 4. Okay. We have, again, a burgundy vehicle, possibly Volkswagen Jetta, occupied by 2 black males and 1 black female. All 3 exit the vehicle and were walking towards the liquor store. 1 black male commented about having weed. The male who made that comment was described as black, slim build, dress pants, dark colored short sleeve, multicolored silk shirt, approximately 20 years old. This is a description we've shared before, but until we started doing this podcast, I think it was in 2 newspaper articles back in 2000 and hasn't really made the rounds. We've definitely figured out that a lot of people haven't heard it. There was actually the 2 black males and 1 black female. We've talked about the second black male didn't get as good a view of, but he was light-skinned, very light-skinned, and the black female was wearing a big baggy jacket, jeans, and white tennis shoes. And was on the taller side for a female. So that description, we keep putting it back out there because it was ignored before. We don't have proof. They were seen in a car parked just outside the liquor store and a couple spaces back as someone was exiting from that area and saw them kind of hanging out there. One of the details, I did manage to speak to this witness, and one of the details they said was that the driver was sort of hunched forward. I don't know if he was trying to hide himself, that kind of thing. And, at one point. And the description that we have here of them getting out and saying the weed thing is sort of an interesting one because it's not we know that they went into the liquor store at some point, but the person that I spoke to said that they actually started the car to leave. So I don't know if there's some merging of stories from 2 different witnesses that's just how it is now in the case files. We do kind of suspect that the initial few months of the case or beginning time frame of the case, that there was not as much thoroughness on some of the stuff. And it's, you're just piecing together old notes that came, 5 detectives ago. And, Detective Bernie is here, going through a lot of this stuff and trying to help us. And it's not always clear from it what descriptions they had. Jennifer asked, Julie, do you want to talk about why you shared this?
Yeah, I think it's a good question if police checked the MVA for burgundy Volkswagen Jettas. And that's something I don't actually know the answer to. I assume they did. I think they spoke to people who came up initially as persons of interest, and they looked at cars around those people, but I don't know.
So I do know from the first time that I talked to Detective Bernie that they did try to do a search on that, but there's a lot of vehicles and it just became a wild goose chase. And they were trying to look at, mapping mapping to who might have been involved as opposed to going and talking to every possible person who owned a car with this description. Keeping in mind that we're on witness number 4. 3 out of the 4 saw a red Jetta or a car that looked like a red Jetta. Was it definitely a Jetta? We have one eyewitness who said that he was pretty darn sure and he knew cars. So, that being said, we're gonna discuss that a little bit further. It's been a common theme that it's a red Jetta, but there's no confirmation.
When you guys were breaking up, there was something I wanted to mention about
this.
Oh yeah. So the thing is that we don't even know, like nobody noted, even though they didn't get a tag number, like they didn't note, oh, it had Maryland tags or DC tags, or so this vehicle, like it would be kind of a wild goose chase to just try.
That is actually a good point.
Yeah.
And there's questions of, we know from back in our day, there was a lot of people who were driving other people's car. Even if you know who owned a car, was that the person driving it that night? That just, or it could have been a parent's car, so there's a lot of different issues, parent, girlfriend, friend, not the person driving the car necessarily. Witness number 5. We got another car, and this one's interesting, so pay attention here. They observed a black Ford Mustang 5.0, newer model. So when we say newer model, we mean like in the early 90s to 95. So that's newer. It's not newer to us now, but it's a newer model black Ford Mustang with ground effects, chrome rims, wing on the back. The car is shiny, tinted windows. That's the description of the car. This car pulled forward, then backed up and spoke to the victim. This is Detective Bernie, but they spoke to Julie, and the occupant was described as a white male or Hispanic male with brown hair. Both of the windows in the car were down. So this is interesting because we know that she was seen between 9:30 and 9:50. So somewhere in this time frame, this shiny black Ford Mustang with all these, popping, cool effects was pulled up and actually pulled back and said something to Julie. We don't know how long he hung out there, but presumably he was before the red car because the last known sighting of her was the red car. And the only thing that the detective said is that they know it was after 9:30. So that is one of those things. Does anybody know someone? And trust me when I say, if you were in your teenage years and you knew someone with this kind of car, that would definitely be pretty cool. So Cornelius is saying the Mustang 5.0 with ground effects was a GT. That exact style with ground effects was 87 to 93, and they were ubiquitous. If anyone does not have a dictionary, ubiquitous means there's a lot of them, essentially.
I'm wondering what other people think. Like, do you think the Mustang is important? Somebody who spoke to her just before?
Do I think the Mustang is important? I do.
I do too.
Anything is important. What was the conversation? Why did they back up? Did they know her? Did they not know her? If they knew her, did they come to police and say, yeah, I spoke to that girl? If they didn't know her, did they come to police and, and say, yeah, I talked to that girl, didn't know her, but, then I went on to do whatever.
Or they saw something. I mean, somebody who was there at that moment.
Maybe it was someone who was a mutual friend with the people committing the crime, and they, they knew that they were coming down there, and it was, everybody swarming her. I don't know.
There's no way for sure to know how many people may have been involved, so we can't really rule out these other vehicles, not doing what Jenny just said. Maybe checking on the situation, seeing where she was at that time, reporting back to someone else who had it in for her. You don't know.
Yeah, there's no reason to know. If she was spooked by that car and they came first, you think she would go inside the liquor store for safety. So I don't know if that spooked her. I don't know if that, she's just out there chatting with every car that pulls up and whatever. Sarah asked, how soon after the abduction did they take these statements? And I'm guessing they were taken individually. We don't have that information. Can't assume anything. I suspect it was all taken pretty soon after. They, the case was reported on, and then basically after that, they would have had people coming forward saying, hey, if you were there that night, what did you see? Maybe it was a liquor store clerk that saw it. Keeping in mind that we discovered the proximity of the liquor store, that you can actually see people from inside the liquor store to the outside, and that people from the liquor store could see Julie in plain sight that night. So it is possible that that's where it came from. But this witness, whoever this witness was, timing wise, it's not a witness that saw the red Jetta. So that, they could have just been someone who went in and out of the liquor store and just happened to be there in that moment. We do know that she was seen talking to the red Jetta at 9:50, and in that very short window of time, she was gone. And I'm saying Jetta, but it was a red car that looked like a Jetta. And we also know that the red Jetta or something similar was seen at the site where her body was dumped. So even if the Mustang or the white van are involved, the police still like the red car because it was in both places. And that's very key to where she would have gone. Now, could have other people been involved and accompanied, or I don't know. But I think it's still important because we don't know if there was more than one person involved in this for some weird reason, and that they were hanging out together. So, hold on one second. I don't know how to move this comment off. Where are we? Here we go. Sorry. So I'm going to go and put this back on. Wait, why did we? Oh, did somebody change that? That's weird. Erin, did you have something you wanted to say?
Well, Susan was asking, was the woman who saw the red car taking her kid to work on Daisy Lane, did she say it was a red car or red Jetta? Jenny, when we talked to Detective Bernie, he actually said it was just a description of a red car, correct? It was not a Jetta that person described officially.
The person who saw it at the dump site, no.
Yeah.
They were driving in the dark. They glanced across like a red sedan style car.
Correct. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I was recalling that.
Oh yeah, 100%. Jill asked the question, how many hours was Julie with the perpetrators? We believe about 2 hours, from about just before 10 to maybe around midnight or so. And the police have said they don't think she ever really left the car. There's evidence to suggest that she didn't much, if at all, leave the car. So we know that she was found 5 miles away. Could they have driven around during that time and just sort of driven around? We do believe that there was more than one occupant in the car. That's been something we've discussed kind of at length and is a common consensus with police. Jill also asked, was it on a school night? Yes, it was, but she was taking off the next day. So she was going to go hang out with her friends that night because they were all going to a funeral service in the morning. And they had planned to kind of have a fun night before the service. The friends got there right around 10, and she was not there when they found her.
I wouldn't call it a fun night. I think they were,
they were going to hang out
in the morning, and it was like they were all sleeping over because one of her friends' moms had been killed in a car accident on St. Patrick's Day. So,
well, as grim as the situation, you know how teenagers are. I think that's what Jenny is talking about.
Yeah, no, for sure.
They were going to enjoy each other's company for the evening.
Yeah, I don't have to go to school tomorrow type thing. So.
Well, and you know, this is not in this slideshow, but in previous episodes, we've talked about the fact that she had purchased weed for that night. And while we don't think it says anything at all about Julie's character, she was trying to have a fun night with her friends. They definitely are planning on chilling out and having a good time. And you know, just making use of a night off of, you know, sort of a night free on a Monday night, you know, that kind of thing. But and the weed comes into play because we don't know who sold it to her still, and that is something that is important for us to find out. So let's keep on going, and we have witness 6. This is witness number 4 in a list of 8 that's seen the same maroon or red Volkswagen Jetta. In this case, we get a little bit more detail, and this is very interesting to me. It says, with tinted windows, driving around with a loud sound system. Customized spoiler. If you don't know what a spoiler is, it's an attachment that goes on the back of the car that's for like wind dynamics, aerodynamics. And we kind of had a little bit of a chat about this because I was declaring who puts a spoiler on a Jetta. I compare it to putting like a turbo muffler on a Prius. You're not going to make a Jetta like a more aerodynamic car. Especially, they were very boxy cars, so I'm just being a little bit of a nerd about that because I love cars. And if you've ever done like the wooden crafts where you make your little wooden car and make it go, you would never shape it like a box. But I mean, anyhow, I just thought that was funny because it's like somebody's obviously tricking out this car. They were seen at approximately 9:30. So now we're getting real. Julie's out there now. And they had a loud sound system, custom spoiler. Okay, not everyone's going to pay attention to the spoiler. Whoever saw this likes cars. We know that. But the sound system is interesting because we go back to witness number 2 that described a red Jetta, and that was it. Just boom, fall off a cliff. Was the Jetta playing music? Was it just driving around? Did, you know, like, tell me about it. Were the windows up? Were they down? Tinted? Not? Could you see people inside? No? Okay. Why not? Oh, maybe it's tinted. So this person who saw this gave a pretty good description. They did say the unknown race of occupant, but they could see sunglasses and curly hair or afro. They just saw the top of the head. So if you imagine, like, I guess here's the sunglasses. Maybe they see from here up, and it's curly, you know, dark hair. It could be an afro. It could be just, you know, I don't know. I would imagine if it was sort of an afro style, it was not like loose curls. Like it would have been, you know, I can't imagine. But so this person also saw the car earlier in the day. So this car, same car, was calling attention to itself and going around the parking lot multiple times in the day. What are your thoughts, guys?
Well, I wanted to say just something real quick about the comments because there are a lot of good comments over here, but I didn't want to keep interrupting the
No, go ahead.
slideshow. So I was thinking that we could, after we get through the slides, we can go through the different comments over here, and then that might be a better flow.
Okay, yeah, we can do whatever you think would work.
I just want to make sure we're addressing other people's stuff.
Okay, so this is my really bad attempt at creating the outfit of this witness account. At around 8:30, an hour before Julie wound up at the liquor store, we saw somebody, witness number 7, saw a suspicious black male walking around the shopping center parking lot, described as a black male, 30s, light brown skin, stocky build, 5'10" to 6 feet, wearing a beige flat jacket vest, green or gray sweatpants.
I hope the sweatpants were green, at least with that vest.
And keep in mind, I just want to be very clear. I pulled these images off the internet. I was looking for a vest.
I know, that's just my comedy for the night.
I imagine it was not like a fancy formal vest, especially when they call it a flat jacket vest. I don't know if they meant flak with like a K, but this is the kind of vest I imagine, in our day, it might have been paired up with some Timberlands.
Yeah, there was some sort of vest like this that they used to wear with the boots and stuff like that. I do remember.
Yeah. Carrie says, I hope nobody was wearing that vest. Honestly, this looks like he's going fishing. All right.
Yeah.
And, when you say suspicious, what does that mean? Why was it suspicious? Come on. I want the details. I want to know, like, why,
you can just
what
hear the
about?
top going, so suspicious. Okay. Like they're like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It was kind of like, so it was suspicious. Good. Like
There was a black
why?
guy walking through a
Happened.
parking lot,
It's
how is
so
that suspicious?
subjective. It's so subjective. I mean, it could have been
Yes.
like a 90-year-old racist white lady thinks everything.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like,
what was suspicious, right?
yeah, exactly. And I think that to me is like,
Susan.
Look, it was the 90s, okay? I don't know.
That's what was suspicious. Susan has hit the nail on the head.
Look, one of those guys was wearing a multicolored silk shirt, and I really should have made an image of that one.
Yeah.
That would have been great too. But so, honestly, I don't know what he was doing in the parking lot that made him suspicious. Maybe he was like peering around, maybe he was ducking and weaving, I mean, I don't know what made him suspicious just walking around the shopping center parking lot. Maybe he was walking aimlessly. Maybe he was trying to peek in, if there was some, plan to pick, Julie up and they're like waiting for her to get off of work and figure it out,
Well, this just goes back to what you're saying, how there's no detail that's too small, okay? Because, we're from that area. We've talked about that. And we know that you might run by someone talking to themselves walking down the street. You might run by someone who's tweaked out on some kind of drug. I mean, it could have been any of those things that was making this person suspicious, but the fact that it's just a subjective statement with no details, that doesn't help. So
right. And maybe he was walking around offering people weed and that person noticed it, and I don't know. And again, this is transcribed by the detectives, and maybe they just gave us a good chunk of, hey, here's some information, and maybe it's not every single word that was documented, so we have to take that with a grain of salt. But if you know someone who was known for wearing tan vests, that's something to think about. And, so anyhow, witness 7, this is also the same witness, also saw a small red vehicle, older model, which fits the general Jetta description, playing loud music, going back to that sound system, this time parked behind the Wendy's with a black subject, again, this is detective speak, subject in passenger seat and reclined back. In this case, they say the vehicle was possibly a Toyota Corolla. So we're going to get back to that. But if you know someone with a red Toyota Corolla from the 80s, okay, and I put in like a sound system here in the back just to, give you a visual. I have no idea what their
maybe
actual
a 12
sound system
CD
looked
changer
in
there.
But yeah, but when someone describes like a sound system and loud music, I don't imagine regular car, car sound systems. I imagine like, someone's got some sort of aftermarket subwoofers in the trunk type of thing.
Oh, and we were all about that at that time.
Mm-hmm.
That was a thing for our time. So yeah, yes. For sure.
Yeah. Well, and so that's again, yet another witness. I think we're on number 5 now out of 7 that saw the same car. Well, in the end, it was 6 out of 8. So I don't know where my math went wrong here, but either way, I think there's one that we didn't put in here, but there was a total of 8 witnesses. So a summary is that 6 out of 8 witnesses saw this red, boxy, older, dark red, maroon car that evening that several said was a Jetta. One said maybe it was a Corolla. Some didn't know, but they just described it and it fit those descriptions. And now we're going to play a little game. Can you tell the difference This is one of the cars. Okay, I chose two 1985 models, and this is the other car. I'm gonna go back now, take a good look.
That's
Now,
a Toyota Corolla, isn't it?
oh, hold on.
Okay.
Obviously, one has a little more shine than the other. One was taken when the car was in better shape. But which one do you think? We're gonna do, this is car number 1, and this is car number 2. Which one do you think is the Jetta? Anyone want to comment?
Come on, Cornelius.
Car number 1 right here. Car number 2. Which one's the Jetta? Okay, so we got Carrie, Jill, and Dawn all in consensus. Susan in consensus. I don't know if you guys just Googled that shit, but
That's
you
a
are
Jetta.
absolutely correct. Interesting. Everyone knows it's a Jetta.
Mhm.
That's crazy. Okay. I wasn't sure if people would pick up on it. If anyone cares to comment on why they knew one was a Jetta and one was a Corolla.
I mean,
Let
I
me
think I've
know.
taken that exact image from the that one and put it in the other
Well, Volkswagens are very,
Volvo. Somebody said
they're
I don't know if that's Volvo.
classic. Like, they don't change their design like too much over the years. I don't
Mhm.
know. I feel like they had a good thing going and they kind of just tweak it every year.
Yeah. Volvo is
She said,
Volvo
"Oh,
to
Volvo."
me like the super
But this
safety.
was
What's
this was
that?
called an older. So Cornelius is saying shiny equals Jetta, but from the descriptions, didn't somebody say it was a late model? So I wonder if it
Yeah.
was kind of a dogged-looking car, like it wasn't. Oh.
Yeah, it might not have
Well,
been tiny.
keeping in mind these pictures are random vehicles, and one just happened to have a luster and the other one didn't. This one might have been taken 30 years later, and this one might have been taken, and one might have been garage kept. There's a lot of different reasons why one might be shiny. All right, Sarah has us figured out. So we showed it in past episodes. I purposefully covered the little symbol. The hood and fronts are slightly different. Well, the good news is you guys are paying attention, but on the past episodes, you can tell the difference. But for me, the Corolla is just a little more rounded and a little less boxy, but still boxy. And it starts to have like a slightly different look. I think it's a little bit less square. Like, look how square this is. And everyone described this car as very boxy that I talked to. So that's kind of an interesting detail.
Wait, go back to the Corolla.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was trying to look at the headlights too to see if they were even more boxy.
Yeah. So here's the thing. If this was the same Jetta, interestingly, a whole handful of people noticed the same car. How often are you paying attention to a car? What was this car doing to get all these people's attention? Well, we know that multiple people described loud music. We know that they were obviously lingering around the parking lot for, hours. If people were seeing them earlier in the day and at 8:30 and at 9:30. But we definitely have them in the parking lot multiple times by multiple witnesses who didn't necessarily have any reason to know that anyone else was talking about it. So that's something to pay attention to. Cornelia says same exact rear window style, could totally mistake one for the other. Also, Gen 2 and Gen 3 Jetta look very similar looking. I agree. And that's the thing. We actually talked about like going to a junkyard and trying to sit in these cars and see them and like just go around as if we have time in our lives for that. But, and we can't get into the minds of the witnesses. I don't know about you guys, but ever since I've been doing this, now whenever I go places, I'm like casing the joint. And I'm like, we drove by a guy who was randomly walking along the side of the road and he looked a little strange. So I was like, white t-shirt, black shorts, wearing tennis shoes. And I'm like, he's probably just like walking to the store or something. I'm like taking details. So in case I ever hear that something bad happened, I'm like, oh yeah. at 9:52, I was driving along. And, so there's definitely, how do those witnesses remember that stuff? Something about it the day before when nothing was wrong must have made those people think about that car after Julie was found. So, Jill, you asked a good question. I want to just make sure we come back to that after we go through this. I'm going to hop to the next screen. We talked a bit about the Mustang. So just a reminder again, that person also talked to Julie. Could it have been somebody who was, knew her, lurking with those other people? Could have been completely other random innocent exchange. Or maybe just some guy being like, hey, can I get your number? And she said no, and he moved on. It could be anything. But if you know anyone, that's a vehicle that would have stood out, because not many people in our age group would have had a shiny Ford Mustang that was a newer model with, looking all nice. Okay. So if you think of anything like that, or talk to someone who did know someone with that type of car, let us know. We do not think that they're necessarily involved. The police don't, because there's enough things putting this red car around that, they're going to explore every angle, but it might be really nice to clear that person, and have them just say, yes, I did actually talk to her. Do they remember all these years later? Would they have come forward at the time? I really don't know. But so anyhow, that's probably not exactly the same car. Cornelius could probably comment on that. But I looked for sort of like a 93-ish Ford Mustang from the time. And I think this is a GT 500. If the internet served me well, because that's what I searched for and that's what it said, but it's the internet. And this again is just a representation. So, okay, this is interesting. Jennifer says that she had an early 80s Toyota Corolla Tercel, and that model looks more like a Jetta. So let's take a note on that, because I want to see that. I do remember the Tercel because my sister had one that was like ice blue, and or sort of like a medium, I don't know, whatever. And I think I remember that one so well because I crashed it. Think so. But anyhow, okay. And Cornelius confirms this is basically the car that, they would have been describing. And that's good to know. So if you know someone who had that kind of car back in, 95, and, you can share that information. We'll talk about where you can send the tips. And I'm going to keep moving, but just try to snapshot that in your mind.
I put this one in here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Somebody brought this up and I thought it was a good point. Ask your Greenbelt Denny friends. We all had them. Maybe some of you are them. What did they hear about what happened? Because that was a hangout in that mall. It wasn't right next to like where you would pull up, but like people hung out there and it was very close to home for them. Basically in their little Gothic backyard. So I'm just wondering like what people were talking about, what different groups were talking about, what did they hear? We all hear the same old things, but sometimes a new perspective, a different group can open up something else.
Yeah, we've talked to a lot of different people from a lot of different walks of life that were sort of in and around the area at the time. And, Greenbelt, you hear of like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon? Greenbelt is like the 1 or 2 degrees. It's really creepy how everyone kind of knows everyone through some channel. And, talk to your Greenbelt friends. You never know. There are people that I didn't know that knew someone who knew someone that, that are, it's crazy the connections that we'll find. So I definitely, if you're in this area of the world at that time you have friends from that time frame and you want to reach out to them and ask questions, did they hear anything? What did they know? Definitely talk about it. The car situation is just an important set of details. And we didn't go over how the same red car was seen at the site too much, but that's an important detail that brings us back to the red car in the parking lot.
Well, let's not say the same red car because we don't
we don't know that it's the same red car, 100%. But it definitely, it's an uncanny coincidence that it was hovering around, seen talking to her, and then there was a red car. And
there were so many sightings
so sightings of a similar car. I think could there have been two red Jettas that day and both caught the attention, but one was blasting sound and one was fairly or not, like just chilling. I don't know. I think it must have taken something to get people's attention that day, to remember the next day or whenever they talk to police. So here's what we want to do, and we really need your help. This is super important. We want to try to fill out a 2-week timeline. It says the week before, but I think 2 weeks before at most, ideally, of what was Julie up to, who she was hanging out with. Did she go to a party? Did she go hang out at a friend's house? Did she go, pick up something from this place? Was she at school every day? Do you remember seeing her at school? Let's get a clear picture of how she spent her days in the week or two before she lost her life, because that'll maybe give us more people to talk to. That could be people who saw her at her job. I don't know if anyone was buying crock pots at 18 years old, but if you were in linens and things for any particular reason, I saw Julie there on this day. Usually, Julie, were you about to say something?
No, it's the phone. Like she was constantly on the phone. So I know, a lot of different people spoke to her. So I'm wondering exactly what she was talking about.
Yeah. Well, and I'm thinking anyone who knew her when she passed, you're thinking, when was the last time I talked to her? When was the last time we hung out? Now, maybe you don't know it was Thursday, 28 years later, but we did talk, or she was at a party like just the weekend before, and any details like that. And if you're not, if it's just sort of general information and you're not like, hey, I need to bring this to the police, you're welcome to share it with us. And, you can message from the Justice for Julie site, and just share like, we went to a party. It could mean absolutely nothing. But for us, I think that constructing, who she was around during that time, what she may have been feeling or going through, her situation in her work life, her home life, her school life, her social life, all that stuff is relevant. Julie had a lot of different groups of friends, and not all of them were in the same space. So you might have a whole different experience with what Julie was doing. That's totally cool. If you were in one class with her in high school, be like, yeah, she was always there. It's pretty normal for her to be at school, whereas for me, it wouldn't have been as normal at that age. So, those are things we want to know. If anything stood out as unusual, we definitely want you to share that. I mean, I think people would automatically kind of know that. We have had people tell us that she was worried about things and stuff like that. So we think she was going through some stuff. We just don't know what. And we know that she was involved in testifying for a case, but that was kind of over. And people associate some of her worry with that, but we don't know if that's really what it was. If you have any more intimate details on what she was worried about or anxious about or happy about or anything, I think we could learn a lot by learning where she was, what she was doing, who she was hanging out with. And anybody who spent time with her, please, please, please message us.
I think, Jenny, I'm not sure if you brought this up before, but just touching back on the whole character witness testifying and things, it does tell us that Julie was kind of not being lackadaisical about things. She was being aware of her surroundings at that time because of kind of the court stuff. So that kind of is important because it makes me wonder, would she just openly be sitting around talking to people she didn't know or people that drove by and things like that? Because it seems like she may have been a little bit more reserved at that time because of some of those things that were going on.
Actually, that's exactly what her manager said. And they weren't like best buddies or anything, but they worked together, and she really cared for Julie. And she said Julie wouldn't just be like talking to anyone and getting into anyone's car because of what she was going through at the time. So even she knew that Julie was going through a lot and feeling distrustful. So that's why we want to know, what was she doing when she went out? Was she having fun and open and hanging out with everyone, or was she a little nervous and reserved? Had she been going to every party every weekend, and then a month before she passed, she just stopped going to parties and started doing only low-key things with just a few friends? I don't know, because I don't know what her social life was like. And we don't know what was going on. If she was at the shopping center and she knew a lot of people, were they going in and seeing her and visiting her? Anything about that kind of stuff would be good. I think a lot of people worked in that shopping center.
Even if you don't know that there was something going on, but you did spend time with her like these 2 weeks prior, as Jenny's asking, all that information that would trickle into us from different people that might have something to tell will show us, like, okay, well, 2 weeks before she was doing this every day after school, 3 days before, 5 days before she stopped doing that. Like, why? Things like that will
or just
help
who
us
she was,
to understand.
Yeah, just who she was associating with. We know the people who were coming to pick her up that night. But who else was she associated with that maybe not everybody knew? But hey, we were at the party at this person's house, and these people were here. Maybe they say, "Oh yeah, I was at that party too." And oh, Dustin, thank you. She was at a very small party at my house the weekend before that happened. I was dating her friend at the time, which is kind of weird because I don't see her posting anything or watching all of this. Dustin, we'd love to talk to you. So when we construct this timeline, we will bring that out in an episode. We'll talk about where she was, because maybe it jogs somebody else's memory. So we're kind of inviting our viewers in to say, yeah, we saw Julie this day or that day. And I think these things are super duper duper important to learning what her state of mind was, what she was worried about, all those things.
I know someone who knows someone that Julie waited on. Checked out at the register that day.
Oh, wow.
Still,
Yeah.
it's still something.
Every little piece. There's no detail that's too unimportant. And I think, I don't know what police did at the time, if they constructed a timeline. If you ever watch investigative shows, they do stuff like you start close to the victim and you work your way out. You try to find out what they were doing in the days leading up to their murder, things like that. But if they went like the creepy, weirdo single guy, roaming the parking lot in the scary white van, if they went that route early on or something, let's say, they might not have thought that it was associated with her personal life. And we don't know how much they really dug into her personal life. But if it was someone she knew, and maybe even someone who had like somehow developed some sort of, issue with her, maybe she didn't even know they had an issue. I don't know. I can't even say. But if there was anything like that, if someone she knew or was hanging out with, then, and they did not construct a timeline, then they wouldn't know who she was really associating with closely during that time. And that's what we're trying to do, is put together, okay, she went to this party this night. Who else was there? She did this day. Please send us messages. We are very open to it. And, we don't have to share your name and information.
So-
So again,
Another thing is, sorry, Jenny, these things, these little details, this is very time consuming to kind of hash through all these things and figure out what is true, what is not. So we know that detectives really don't have the time to go through the nitty gritty like we're doing right now. And that's nothing against them. That's not against them. That's just that it's that detailed.
yeah. So this is interesting. I don't know if I can show it on the screen. It's probably too small. I don't think you could see it. I don't even know where to put it. This is a picture of a tercel.
Oh, wow.
Can anyone see that without the glare? How much does it, like a Jetta, does that look like? Kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, even the front, like right in there. That's crazy. So, I don't know. But someone just sent me that. So I figured I'd share it.
Well,
Open
Right.
our minds. Who had a tercel? Who had a Jetta? I don't know if you guys find any other cars that are so identical to a Jetta that you can't really tell the difference just visually without looking at the logo, send them to us. We would love for you to do that. I don't mind if you inundate us with that, because we need as many detectives on the case as we can get. So anyhow, I asked a lot, like if you're paying attention right now, please do, because obviously I'm just repeating on these bullet points what I just said. Where did she buy her weed? Did anyone visit her at home? What parties, events? And then I say, who is Jermaine Johnson? Jermaine Johnson is an important name because this person was calling her house leading up to her death at random times, enough for her mom to say this number was suspicious. But yet we cannot find anybody in her circle of friends who knows who Jermaine Johnson is.
This could have been a parent.
It could have been a parent or a friend or a cousin or anybody. But
this is who.
this is just
Not that the
who's
parent
name.
was calling her, but that it was under an adult's name is what I meant. But yeah,
Right.
The phone was registered to a Jermaine Johnson. So if you know a Jermaine Johnson that went to like Eleanor Roosevelt, maybe somebody else mentioned a different Jermaine, definitely a Jermaine Johnson. I don't know if you'd have a high school student that had a phone registered in their name on the bill, but maybe it's somebody's family member, parent, uncle, cousin, buddy, whatever it was. If someone knows a Jermaine Johnson that's associated with people that knew Julie, please, please, please share that with us. We don't know that there's any connection, and there's no reason to think that at this point.
Just
so I'm
that
not
they may have been just using the phone, basically.
Right, that there was something going on where they were getting a call from this number.
Right.
And I wish we had the phone number, but so that's just something that we'd love for you to think about too. And we do believe that the way we're going to solve this case is with everybody who shares information. So again, this is the justiceforjulie.org website. There's a way to submit an anonymous tip through Crime Solvers. And so you can go to justiceforjulie.org.
right. And Crime Solvers would be more like if you wanted to put your hat in the ring for the reward money, or if you thought it was something that was relevant to cracking the case. But you can also, there are two forms there's two columns if you go to the next one. Yeah. So Crime Solvers is on the left, and then on the right, you don't have to put your name or email or phone number in. It's helpful if you want us to get back to you, want someone to get back to you, but you can just fill out, check one of the boxes and then share your tip. So in your tip, you can just say, I saw her the week before, or Jermaine Johnson worked
an old buddy of mine.
I don't know. He's an odd one because nobody knows who he is, but he called Julie a lot, or someone
Yeah.
from his number called her a lot. So who is this person? I think it's important because
Who's sister, cousin, brothers, uncles, whoever is related to Jermaine Johnson.
Yeah, somebody knows a Jermaine Johnson. Let's put it that way. We don't know who the somebody is. So anyhow, yes, you can do an anonymous tip through that. You can call the PG County Police Department directly and ask for Detective Bernie if you don't want it that way. But that's not anonymous. He would have to talk to you, call you back, and you can also message us with something, especially if you're like, well, this isn't really like at the level that I would go to the police, but let me just tell you what I knew about such and such. We are kind of, documenting what we hear and just keeping an eye out for things that stand out to us as much as possible. Susan asked, was it a Greenbelt number? We believe it was like a Landover, Lanham area number.
New Carrollton, maybe.
New Carrollton-ish. So, we don't have the actual number in hand, but we were told that it was that general area. So it wasn't far. And we do know that Julie had friends and associates who were in those areas. We were not told the phone number. I'm sorry. I wish we were.
Yes, that would be lovely.
We did have somebody who had a Jermaine in their phone book, but with no last name. And we were, did a little sleuthing on it. And it was somebody who was sort of, actually not far away. They were kind of off of down Hanover Parkway, off of, I don't know, Good Luck. No, it was sort of where Atlanta meets New Carrollton.
I think it was Good Luck Road. Yeah.
Somewhere around there. Kaylee's saying, yearbooks. I would love yearbooks. We don't have any yearbooks for Eleanor Roosevelt. This person could have gone to Parkdale or where would people in that area have gone to high school? I think Parkdale was back there in that area.
Again, we don't know if Jermaine is, did Detective Bernie confirm that it was actually registered to that person, or that's the person that they tied the number back to?
That's the number. I think it was registered to that name.
So
they haven't
Jermaine is potentially just who the phone number was like in their name at that time.
Yeah.
So it may not even be a person that would have been our age, this Jermaine person.
Jill said maybe Duval or Northwestern. Kaylee went to Parkdale. Yeah, Kaylee, definitely pull out that yearbook. I might have some other questions for you if you're willing. But, she said she has a weird feeling for Duval area. I don't know what that's.
What is it?
She said she has a weird feeling about Duval. And I said, because they're sketchy.
I graduated from there. Don't mess with me.
Yeah. Well, so, either way, if you know somebody, if you guys have old yearbooks, you can look for that person. Again, we don't know that the person
that was calling
was a high school student during that time frame, but it can't hurt to look and see, and if we can find people who know that person, even better. Again, we don't necessarily think this person is involved in the case at all. We just think somebody might have been calling from their phone, because we don't think it was someone. We don't think Jermaine is someone that Julie was like in a close friendship with of any kind, because it just doesn't add up to what her friend circle was. But somebody who knew her that might have been in her friend group, might have been calling from a Jermaine house, that kind of thing. So,
that's what I said.
Yeah, that's what I agree.
But it could have been someone in the early 20s, and we do know that some of the people that have been discussed in this case in the past are in the early 20s. So don't rule out someone in that generation. I keep saying generation, I mean age group. But someone in that older age group who could have been old enough to have their own place and a number in their name. So that's something to really think about is, no 17-year-old who was the same age as Julie would have a number registered in their name, billed to their name. But there could have been a young adult, as well. So it could be somebody's friend from that kind of older layer of friends that were hanging out with them. And I'm not even going to talk about 22-year-olds hanging out with 17-year-olds, but it happened a lot where we lived, unfortunately. So just want to say real fast, go to YouTube, follow @CrimeCrashers. This is episode number 6 on the Julie Ferguson case. If you want to catch up on past episodes, there's a little bit of rehashing certain things, and that might get old after a time, but there's other pieces of information that are kind of important in there too. So you can catch up on all of the 1 through 5 if you haven't watched them yet. This is number 6. And we will hopefully have more to come forward with, especially if we can construct that timeline. And also we have on Facebook, you go and search Justice for Julie Ferguson, or type @GiveJulieJustice and follow there. Most of you are probably from the Facebook page, so you're probably already on it. And we also shared this flyer before. If you're around, have access to a printer, and you want to print it out and post it around in the PG County area, especially around Greenbelt, Landover, New Carrollton, Laurel, I don't know, anywhere around there, you just want to put it out in public somewhere, please do. There is still, I think we agreed there was a $27,000 award.
Bernie said now to say up to 25,000. So
Okay, up to 25,000. But so there you have it, and that's the end of the slideshow. So we'll just sort of chat it out for a minute here.
Just so you guys know, I was having technical issues. I had to get on my phone, so I can't see comments. So,
okay.
Just so you know.
Yeah. So Julie wanted to go and talk through some comments that she wanted to address.
I thought I didn't bookmark any of them, but if maybe people just wanted to add like new ones.
Make
it easier for me.
I was wondering how you were going to go back.
Julie out.
This is a really long one. I can't remember when it was, but I was in Kmart and she was there waiting for a ride. She yelled out my elementary school nickname for me, so I knew it was her. I was with my mom. We have to take her home, and she said she couldn't because her friends who were picking her up would be mad that she wasn't there. Always had a bad feeling that she was waiting on people. So that's an interesting one because we've actually argued about this. Would she have left when she knew her friends were coming to pick her up?
No. Freak no. No.
Not in a natural situation.
No, Julie has maintained this stance that there's no way, based on how her personality was, that she would have done that.
So we introduced was she pulled into the car or was she coerced uncomfortably into the car? And, we'll call it voluntarily and involuntarily. And when I say voluntarily, I don't mean that she wasn't threatened to get in the car. I just mean she got in without fighting. If she was coerced, like, come on, it'll only be a minute, we'll stay right here, and then boom, off they go. Could that be a scenario where she got in without kicking and screaming, didn't really want to get in, didn't really want to go anywhere? We've talked about this a lot. And potentially just ditched her friends. And there's some argument about whether or not they were late. I do think they were late. It was cold. It was 50 degrees out there. Could she have agreed to because she was worried they weren't coming after all, or didn't know what to think because she didn't have a way to reach them? Of course, there was a payphone right there. So could she have called collect or had a quarter, bummed a quarter? So would they have even answered the phone though if she was trying to call them? I don't know.
And they were probably riding around, so there's no cell phones,
Right. So, and then there's the involuntary where they snatched her and pulled her in the car, and of all the eyewitnesses that saw her talking to them, nobody saw her scream and in distress, and it just happened to be that one moment where nobody noticed, in spite of people coming and going from the store. And then there's she just wouldn't have gone at all. You would have had to knock her out, and that's why nobody heard. Again, that's
Well,
Or-
if somebody
they
was
had a
playing
weapon.
bass, no,
I
but
mean-
if somebody has like that boom in the back of their car, you're not going to hear somebody if you have the door open, they lean in and you pull them. Like, she was so tall.
so. And we need to talk to witnesses and say, was there loud music when they
Yeah,
were pulled up
yeah.
like that? You know, and why wasn't that in all those descriptions? Like, or asked if I talked to 8 witnesses that all saw something in the parking lot and 4 of them described loud music coming from this car, would I not go back to the other group of witnesses and say, well, did you hear music coming from this car? You know, like, I mean, maybe they turned it down because they were talking to her. You know, although if you're really trying to like pump your music and be cool, maybe you turn it down for nothing. I don't know.
Well, I
But-
mean, and there's always the possibility she was involuntarily got in because there was a weapon involved. You know, I mean, you don't know.
Yeah, we've talked about that. In fact, the Ken Main's prison guy talked about like you use a knife and women will freeze and whatever, and use a gun and they'll run. I don't know, but I don't think there's any real scientific evidence for that. I think it's just a guy who thinks he knows how to, you know, abduct women. But you know what we do know is that there's not a single witness that came forward that saw her clearly in distress, fighting back, resisting in any kind of way. They saw her leaning in, talking. When I say leaning in, take that with a grain of salt because we don't know how far. They saw her leaning down, talking to whoever was in the car. And we don't know how close she was. That's actually a question I asked the detectives to find out. But I've asked the detectives to look up a lot of things. I feel like I need to make a honey-do list for them. It's gotten so long. I think I've got like 10, 20 things for them to do.
They're
And
gonna put you on a restriction quota of how much.
I know. They're like, look, you can only ask for like 3 things at any given time. But you know, those types of questions, maybe the witnesses don't remember now. And it really bugs me that these questions weren't asked before. So, but I don't think there's a scenario where she was fighting and screaming and kicking. And that just didn't happen to get noticed. She was literally, 8 feet from the door of the liquor store. Would they have heard her screaming over the music?
Yeah, Benjamin, I agree. But we've been a little confused about that. Why that wasn't followed up on harder.
There's another phone number, just to be clear. We know that name, but there's a second phone number that they never did trace back to a name. And the detectives think that they could potentially find now because there's better records. I don't know what that means. I don't know what number it would have been. I don't know if it was calls going in or out. I just know that there's a second number that they didn't ever verify. And again, why not? I don't know. Hopefully they get on that and look a little deeper because that might construct a little bit of, a history there of who she was talking to in the days leading up.
And I think that I know Jenny has said this many times on other videos that everything is important because not everything is going to turn into something, but if we can continue to provide information to keep it live, so to speak, with the detective, it can't be ignored. Okay. It keeps it in the forefront. They've got to do something and follow up on things because it's just so many little pieces of information that we got to keep it in that snowball effect. Like, well, here's something else, here's something else, here's something else, so that it doesn't go back to the back of the pile on the desk,
Yeah. I'm just going back through the comments a little bit. Leslie asked how long was she dead when she was found. And the detectives did say that rigor mortis had set in, which can take, I think, an hour to 2 hours to start showing up.
He said about 2 hours and it was around 5:30, right?
Yeah. So yeah, she was found at 5:30 and they believe that she was killed around the time that she was dumped, which would have been midnight. But they don't have like, with any of these, they're just connecting those dots because the person who drove by and saw the red car right where her body was found, drove past the red car, noticed it because it was standing there with the lights on, dropped theirs, I think it was son, off at work, and then came back down Daisy Lane the other direction, and the car was gone, and there was something on the ground that she drove by. I don't know if it was a she, that they drove by and saw on the ground. And that really narrows down the time frame that car would have been there and then leaving. So they really think that that's kind of how they know. And they know that when she was dumped, she was already dead or pretty like maybe just very recently killed right before she was dumped because when her throat was slit after she was put on the ground, and they said that she did bleed but not very much, which indicated that her heart was not still beating when they cut her throat. So what that means is the blood would have pumped out more if the heart was beating, and because it just sort of kind of, I guess, drained out a little bit, there was a lot less blood than there would have been if her heart had still been beating. And that's what the detectives told us. So we think around midnight, found at 5:30 in the morning. By then it was raining. So we have that, factor. So,
And then you can go back and watch, was it episode 4 where we went over what they told us about like physical evidence and the scene and methods and things like that? It had a lot more information as far as the specifics on that night and things that they think may have occurred.
Yeah. I think that, one of the things that, when we first started this, we focused a lot on the details of her murder and, trying to figure out where could they have gone, if they stayed in the car the whole time, were they just driving around with, her in the back seat, trying to get out, and, maybe that's why they tied her up. And we focused on, well, how did they tie her? What did they tie her with? All these different things. And kind of what I've started to realize is that is important and you can't forget about it. But there's so much more before that moment that we never really talked about. And that's why we're trying to construct the timeline. Because if it was someone she knew, then the only way to find out that information is to know who she knew. Who would she have felt compelled to get in the car with? When I say compelled, I mean it could have been a threat, it could have been a insistence of some sort that she felt like she had to get in because maybe those people were scary to her. We do know she was hanging around some scary people. I feel like Julie was like surrounded by like all kinds of people at the time. Some were really good in school and things like that, and some were like not bad, but just like being teenagers. And then there's some that are just not really good people. And she was associating with some of them in some ways.
And you had mentioned before, and I really have kind of always thought this, not that my opinions matter, but almost the feeling like she may not have wanted to get in the car, but like you said, she may have known the people, may not have wanted to get in, but didn't necessarily think that she would lose her life over getting in the vehicle. But may have been a little scared of them and not known what to do. So she might have just complied and got in, but didn't think it would end the way.
Be life ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, she probably didn't imagine that was. I don't think she ever. I think she would have fought a lot harder from that moment if she thought she was in serious danger.
Right.
I think those are things. Those are things that really we try to figure out, we try to think about her state of mind when she got in that car. And it's so hard to know. It's really hard to know what she was thinking. If it was some of the people that, we've thought about, she probably would have felt compelled to, from the perspective of, they were demanding people, and if they asked for it, you kind of did it, we don't know. I'm sure she was not comfortable. That I feel pretty confident about, that it was not like, this is a good idea, but I don't think she thought she was going to end up dead. And they might not have planned on killing her. There's reasons for the detectives to believe that it was spontaneous. So anyone have any other questions? Oh, that's a good point. Nobody mentioned out-of-state tags. And in fact, did the police even ask them that question?
And Maryland has a front tag still, right?
I
Yeah,
think they
big
did
tag.
back then. Yeah, I think that they've always had front and
I'm
back.
pretty sure back when I lived, because I only have one now, but I'm almost 100% that they had two
Wait, two what?
tags, like one on the front and the back. So it's not like, they didn't have it in their face.
Julie, were you shocked for a minute?
No, I was I'm just making a derpy face because I'm like looking at the comments. I'm just like, oh, I'm fine. I'm just
That's great.
have a
I like
cute
how
for a
she
minute. Thank you for
called you justice
noticing.
for Julie Ferguson. Jennifer said, yes, we did have front and back.
Yeah. I was just thinking that way, like Cornelia said, like if they came and they saw the front or the back of the car, they would have potentially noticed that. But if it was somewhere that didn't have that front tag, they might not have noticed an out of place tag.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that we've talked about this before, but the dump site was a familiar place for locals. And not that definitely eliminates non-locals, but it certainly is not a place you would just naturally go and find. If you weren't local, I think the first thing you do is get the heck out of Dodge and not be 5 miles away in some unknown place, and you're not really sure where you're heading. But who knows? We didn't have GPS back then, so you couldn't just map yourself to a forest. You maybe just drove around. But we definitely think that Daisy Lane was sort of a common place. It was a shortcut for a lot of people who were going between, I forget what areas,
Bowie
but
and Greenbelt. Like
Glendale and
people took that to
Bowie.
Roosevelt from Bowie in the morning.
The other interesting thing we talked about was like how you get there. We talked about would they have gone up 193, would they have gone down Hanover to like Good Luck to whatever, or would they have gone, someone actually mentioned this, you can actually get there from the farms, Beaver Dam Road. So would they have gone on Beaver Dam to Good Luck to over to Daisy Lane? I don't know. No, it's Lanham Severn. Beaver Dam Road ends at Lanham Severn, I think. Those are definitely. Leslie says, if the car was custom, did they have a mechanic they went to in Greenbelt that recognized cars? I mean, there was the mechanic's place in Old Greenbelt, right where I think that there was a Domino's that was either took over or next door to them, and there was one behind kind of where the co-op was. But I don't know, because a lot of people didn't have a lot of money back then. There was a lot of do-it-yourself crap. And so like if they had a sound system, were they wiring it themselves? I know a lot of people who did that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, the Shadow Hut, they said the custom spoiler, tinted windows. There was always somebody. If you were trying to, show up like that, you usually had people who would do that stuff for you for cheap. I don't think you were like, let me take my car to the shop and and pay top dollar for it. There was a lot of doing it yourself. Jane
Yeah,
said
especially the install.
Greenbelt Auto and Truck. Do you mean Greenbelt?
Nope.
Oh.
We were looking on it at the same time.
So everyone's talking about Daisy Lane being so hidden. There's no way they weren't local. And Jennifer said, yes, exactly. Even being from here and taking the road so many times, I would have missed it. It's definitely not a road that you just, would naturally go down. And as soon as you turn onto it, you're like, where the heck am I?
Where does it go? What am I doing? Yeah, it would not be
there's
something
a
you
weird
would.
split off. Like if you go to the back from 193, if you take Daisy Lane all the way up, you're like there's like a bridge or something over there. Or like
From the backside of Hillmead and all. Yeah,
it was a sketchy road. And I think too that there was a pull off there, and they did go to the pull off. So maybe that's why it was chosen. Maybe they were driving up and down these roads and
or maybe they were headed home.
Well, and this is something I brought up in previous episodes, but a bunch of people I knew that were in the older generation, I keep saying generation, who were older than me, who would have been, maybe 21, 22 around that time frame, used to hang out on Daisy Lane, that there was an old skate ramp, and they used to go there, hang out and drink. And so that was that area right there. And I don't know much about it because I never personally went there. It was also not far. I think we established 2 miles from through a path. There's like the BW trail, some trail back there that's now paved. I don't know if it was paved at the time, but a trail that led to where the abandoned hospital was. And so there's people who knew it for that reason, that they would go park up on Daisy Lane and then walk the trail. And, we've discussed who would do that. And, bored teenagers who had nowhere to drink and smoke weed in private might do that. So Daisy Lane was known for a couple different things. It was a pass-through. Leslie says she goes on that road every day. If you're local, you know about it. It's kind of a small, whiny, creepy little road.
Your generation made it hot. We didn't hang out there.
Yeah. You guys ruined it.
Well, I felt like I remember people hanging out there, and so when we started talking about this, I reached out to some of my older friends, mainly because I only hung out with older people. It wasn't like by chance. It wasn't like, oh, let me talk to older people. But the first person I talked to was like, oh yeah, because I knew he lived in Greenbelt East, is what we call it, but he lived in that general direction. So I was like, I'll ask him because it's, I just walked out of my door and went down to the center, and there was always people to hang out with.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel a need to drive to Daisy Lane to have my hangouts, but he was like, yeah, we used to go there all the time. That was a normal place to be. So I was like, oh, and then somebody else said it, and they were all in that same age group. So it must have been a thing for some people. Does anyone else have any other questions or thoughts you wanted to ask or share? So I'm just going to revisit the timeline thing. Please reach out to us. We've had a few people offer some stuff just in the chat. But we're going to construct that timeline, try to figure out who she was associating with and hanging around with. And, if we have any shot at doing an episode for next week, we need people to bombard us with that information. So reach out to people have them reach out to us. This is not to pinpoint somebody or make somebody seem suspicious that wasn't. This is just to get a sense of what Julie's life was like and who she was spending time with. And maybe there's somebody we didn't think of, that knows something or knew something about Julie's state of mind at the time. We do know she was going through some things. So,
but thank you guys. We really need your help, and we appreciate you sticking this out with us and joining us every week and just interacting and helping us kind of mull over everything. All the minds we can get is for the better.
100%. So we will just, keep an eye out. We'll be posting when we do our next episode. We're trying to make it every Tuesday at 8:30. We'll try to stick to that. There might be times where we skip a week because we've been putting in a lot of work on this. And, sometimes, we want to save it up, or we have some things we're working on that we want to focus on. So,
then we're not quite ready. We might
yeah.
have some leads and things that we're dealing with, and it's a week where we're getting a lot of information and we're not quite ready to put it all together yet. Things like that.
We talked about her lifestyle really fast. Teenage years in that area, you're surrounded by a lot of different types of people. And there was a lot of us, myself included, who had one foot in the dumb stuff and one foot in the good stuff. And it took me a long time to reconcile, like, why I was in one lane over here and another lane over there. And, maturity and growing up definitely changes that.
For sure.
So we don't think that she was necessarily in any way kind of Amy Newer from Dances at the Branchville Fire Department. I never went to any one of those. I don't know why, but honestly, I think that she was a great person who maybe was just, hanging out with people, and there's always people in the peripheral. When I look back, even if I wasn't doing anything bad in that time period, there was people in the peripheral. It was just where we were. So, we have one other question. Did they find any other people's DNA at the crime scene? So DNA is still being worked on. There's some new technology for some of the stuff that they have to test, and it can take a while. And even if they get DNA from things, they also still have to trace it back to a person. And even if they trace it back to a person, then they have to prove that that person was the person. So there's a lot of steps to take to actually make it to that point, and it can take a while. But keep in mind, we had COVID that slowed everything down for a while, and I think things have warmed back up in terms of everything they're doing. But those are things that the police are still actively working on. We're going to hop off. It's after 10. Thank you so much for staying with us on this, and look out for our next episode, most likely next Tuesday. But we really, really, really want you guys to help us. Okay? Let's not do this alone. We can all team up and come up with some timeline information. Thank you very much.
Hold on a minute. That's coming from who Benjamin Fair is. Benjamin Fair is Julie's cousin. So back off. We're all friends here, I think. So yeah, message us. It's scrolling across the bottom. Send it to the Facebook page. Send it to the website, and I guess that's it.
Yep. Thank you very much. Take care.
Be safe, guys.
Signing out.
All good.
Bye.
Bye.